All right. We'll call to order the regular meeting for the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners for Tuesday, July 8th, 2014. Good morning, everyone. My name is Langdon Neal. I'm chairman of the board. Seated to my left is Commissioner Marisol Hernandez. Mr. Cowan is not able to join us today. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the last meeting of May 28th, 2014.
Motion to approve?
Approved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
That'll be the order. We'll then now move to the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to let the board members know a couple of items. First of all, we've met with almost every elected official to talk about what's going on in the wards, what we need to do. And the reason why we met with them is because we are going to do a mailing in the middle of this month, our mail canvas. And what we're doing with the verification registration card for the first time, we're going to put the actual polling place address on it.
Excellent.
And because when somebody gets that mailing, they usually take that card, clip it out, and put it in their wallet.
Yeah.
They will have the polling place address for the November election through the February election. So it'll really help us on a lot of calls that we get. Where's my polling place?
So that means we have to lock down all
That's what we're
polling
doing
places.
right now.
Okay.
And by the end of this week, we should have most of them. Now, there will be maybe about 20 or 30 that will be to be announced, and we'll follow up on the second mailing on that.
And did you work through that with the elected officials?
Yes. Everybody we spoke to is really happy with that.
Okay.
Because it'll take a lot of calls from their offices.
Right.
So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
And I trust that we're not going back to some of those proprietors who forgot there was an election on the last.
All the ones that we had an issue with have been replaced.
Okay.
So I think it should be a lot smoother for this upcoming election.
On a just percentage basis, about what percent of the polling places are going to be new this time around?
Maybe 15 or 16%. So we're very happy with that. That's one item. The second item is we have a meeting tomorrow, 9:30, with some of our community partners to talk about permanent polling places, our permanent sites for early vote, grace period registration. So we're working on that right now. Hopefully we'll get everybody's input on that.
Okay.
So I wanted you to be aware of that. And basically, that's all I have. I know Ms. Bateman will talk more about the poll book. She's working on that.
All right. Anything else for Mr. Goff? And we will turn it over to Ms. Bateman. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's been a while. It's nice to see you.
Yes.
As Mr. Goff mentioned, we are continuing our meetings with the SNS regarding the use of the poll book. We are going to use, our idea is to use it for early voting as well as grace period. This time around, we will be doing grace period out in 4 field locations, and then down here as well.
To be announced.
To be announced. Well, yeah, the number to be announced.
Okay.
But we really want to use the poll book for this purpose. This will really help us. So we are meeting weekly with ES&S. They are coming here frequently to meet with us in person, just to go over the workflow and the process of connection. We're meeting again this Friday to test the connection at the early voting sites, just to make sure it works with the poll book. So those meetings are moving forward.
Okay.
As you know, the state board started their, what they call POVA, their paperless online voter registration application. So they are now there. You can register online without using any paper. Through this, they have to obtain your signature through the Secretary of State's office, so you have to have a driver's license or an ID. So we're moving along with that. I don't have an exact number of how many we've received at this point, but I know registration and IT is every day working diligently and getting those registrations processed. And we're just busy. It's a busy summer.
Yes.
It's a very busy summer. It's
Yeah.
already July, and we're moving forward for November and February and April. So
Yes. Okay.
that's it.
Very good. Thank you.
How big will the ballot be?
It looks like it's 2 pages.
2 pages
Yeah,
as opposed to
At
3?
least it's not 3.
Yes.
Which was the idea or the thought. So yes, 2.
Two full pages.
It'll go
correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, the second ballot will be generic across the city. So everyone will get the same second ballot.
Good.
It won't be a special ballot, so the second ballot will be the same across the board, across the city.
Okay.
So, and also one other thing, the warehouse is moving along with doing their preventative maintenance on the equipment. Paige has been extremely helpful with that, and Dominion. So they're moving forward with just project after project, so getting ready for November.
Excellent. So back to one thing you said, Kelly, about the poll books we're going to use at the early voting sites?
The
Okay.
51 early voting sites, yes.
Okay.
We've used laptops in the past, but we are going
Right.
to utilize the e-poll.
Okay, so the laptops won't be the primary source of,
It'll be the poll books, and we're purchasing 155
additional
ones.
Right.
Under the contract.
Yes.
okay. And then, of course, we have the grace period, and then we have the permanent same-day voting sites.
And we're gonna use the poll books for everything.
Okay. All right, good. That's why we implemented them last time, right? And it's
Successfully
it
implemented.
successfully, and it turned out to be a very, very wise policy decision because, we've seen such a rush of legislation that we really need them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else from Ms. Bateman? Then we'll move to Mr. Allen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The new website, as you know, is up.
Yes.
Running.
Congratulations.
Thank you. There are still a few refinements we need to work on, including the mobile app and the new system to simplify downloads of election results and data from past elections. But the most difficult part, the launch of all of the content is up. In addition to what Mr. Goff talked about in terms of trying to settle all the polling places, we're working on the physical part of the canvas itself. So the stock is printed, and now we're in the process of preparing the files. We just sent a test file over to the mailing house, and we hope to have the full file over them in another week and a half to 2 weeks, so that we can drop that by the end of July.
And how does the, remind me again, Mr. Allen, you can click on our, if you want to register, does that take you to the state registration system?
Immediately takes us right through.
Right, okay.
To the Illinois State Board of Elections system, which, as Kelly mentioned, we've already been using very successfully. So, hopeful, crossing our fingers, that this will produce long-term, especially in a presidential year, considerable savings and voter convenience, because you'll be able to easily download thousands of registrations as opposed to preparing one at a time, all these paper forms, and trying to scramble to get that done before the start of early voting.
Okay. Excellent. So we don't do our registration system of sending the,
It still has the safeguard.
still have the safeguard?
Where we mail a voter verification card.
Yes.
So were we to get bad registration, if you would, or someone gets a hold of somehow someone's driver's license plus the issuance date, it's got that safeguard so that you can't just guess someone's driver's license or obtain the driver's license. You also have to know the issuance date. Anyway, there's that front-end security, and then if we were to get a bad address for some reason, the person entered it in incorrectly, we do the mailing, and then when it comes back to us, we know that we have to try to contact that person. But now we'll also have, chances are, a phone number and an email address. So,
But the state system doesn't depend upon that. We just implement that in Chicago. Does every jurisdiction do that?
every jurisdiction
Okay.
implements it. They
Okay.
get their bucket of data and signature clips, and they create voter registrations from there.
Okay. Okay.
Could I ask Mr. Allen if you could let the board members know that we talked to the elected officials and they want to put that online service on their emails when they're sending it out to their constituents?
Well, yeah, in the course of meeting with officials to make sure that there weren't any problems with polling places
Mhm.
currently, because we want to have everything ironed out, not only for November, but also February, since it's sort of back to back. We brought up the online registration, and all of the officials that we talked with want to include that in their weekly newsletter as a permanent item. So,
Great.
hopeful that we're going to do everything we can to promote that system.
Jim's gonna send a blast to all of them, so
Okay.
they can have it.
But if they register you, I'm sorry to be stuck on this, there's something that's not clicking in my mind. If they register under the state system,
Right.
okay, and they send us the registration, are they eligible, or do we have to then send them that voter verification card?
We still have to send them a voter verification card, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, that's under HAVA procedure, or is that just the Illinois Voter Registration Act?
Both.
Both, okay.
So we still have to send a voter verification card by mail,
Mhm.
just as that extra backstop.
Okay.
So if that comes back, let's say the card comes back,
Right.
then it's provisional? It
Then we
would
have
be-
an inactive,
An inactive registration, we have to send a forwardable piece of mail to the individual at that address to informing the person that we have reason to believe that they may have moved. We ask them to confirm whether in fact they reside at that address or whether they may have moved. As part of the mailing, there's a confirmation card. And if they return that to us to confirm they're still there, then we restore them to active status. If there is no response from the voter, then we continue to list the registration as inactive. If they go to vote on election day and sign a ballot application under penalty of perjury, they're certifying that they reside at that address. So if they come in and they vote and sign that ballot application, and they're allowed to vote, and their registration will be restored to active status.
But, okay, but the difference from, until this recently, this state system went into place, we no longer need a wet signature from our voters.
That is correct.
Okay.
What we get is a signature that is on file with the Secretary of State.
That's the difference.
Whether it's a driver's license or a state ID, or possibly both, but we capture their signature that's in their system,
Right.
which is an original wet signature
Which is an original wet
when
signature.
they obtained
But
it.
not from the voter.
Well, it's from the voter.
Well, not directly from the voter, it comes from the state. It was captured when they applied for driver's license.
When they applied for a
Yeah.
driver's license,
Yeah.
that was a wet signature.
Yeah.
They capture it, they digitize it,
Right.
and they store it.
Gotcha.
And keep in mind, the online registration is only for persons who have a valid Illinois driver's license or valid state ID through the Secretary of State. So when they go online to register to vote,
Mhm.
that allows us to capture that signature from the Secretary of State's database and then bring it forward into our system.
Excellent. That's the difference before, so thank you. Okay, anything else, Jim?
no, that's it.
Chairman,
Okay.
Chairman, I
Yep.
have two more things that I have to add. I did talk to the board members about the disabled booths. We met
Yes.
with the community. They want us to replace those. They're falling apart. It's not doing much good out there if nobody's using them. So we're going to replace those for this coming November election.
That's
Okay,
fine.
and what are the advantages of the new booths?
The new booth is, A, it's easier to put together, it's smaller, we need more room in the ESCs because we have the poll books in there, and we're running out of room. So it's more compact, it's more durable, and it'll be a lot easier for the judges to set up. Sometimes the judges just leave them in the corner because they don't set them up. And anybody can use them. It can be used for disabled, for the wheelchairs, for the electric scooters. Will be used for everything.
Can they use this overflow if
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Everybody can
That's,
use it.
that's,
And that's what's good about it. We'll
Yeah.
have a chair with it also.
That's good.
So I'm really happy about that. Second item, the last item is that our preliminary budget is due this Friday at 5 o'clock for 2015. So just want the board members to be aware of that.
I just, back to those disabled voting booths. Is it possible that they could have the legs so they could lift up, so they could, to the extent that they're not being used by anyone in a wheelchair, that they could be lifted up and
No,
used as extra?
you lose the strength in the legs if you have it where they're adjustable.
I got you.
So, but they can still sit down,
They can
anybody can
sit
sit in a
down.
chair and use the booth.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
And I could see a lot of people going for that, the elderly and, you know.
Yes,
people
yes, that's
who-
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, with a long
especially, you know, somebody who needs to sit
That's
down.
right.
and work
Yeah,
on that.
exactly.
All righty. We'll go to old business. Item number 1, infrastructure projects. And we've talked about our infrastructure projects. Anything new we want to talk about today?
Well, I mean, the only news is that after the signature of the new legislation, we've achieved most of the goals that the audience and the voter engagement
Yes.
forum set out for us, that we then described in the infrastructure plan. We're now going to have a form of same-day registration. We're now going to have electronic poll books. We're now going to have online voter registration. That and an online system for accessing your ballot to military and overseas voters. So, short of vote centers, which
We're close to.
It's close.
Yeah.
we're kind of moving in that way with the 5 centers that we will have for
Yes.
same-day registration. We've got a lot of the big items taken care of, or at least taking shape.
That's great. We should somehow communicate with our partners in the community engagement process and let them know that their voice was heard.
Actually,
Yeah.
that's a great idea. and
Yes.
We'll get on that.
Yep. All righty, we'll move. We talked about electronic poll booths. I don't think we need to say much more about that. Voting equipment. Paige, anything you want to say for us today? Good morning. Good morning.
As Ms. Bateman indicated, we've been working this summer on the preventative maintenance, and we hope to wrap that up today.
Okay.
We met briefly with Gary Risseson last week to discuss the preliminary schedule coming up for the next election. So we are moving towards November.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. All righty, we'll move to legislation.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think as both Kelly and Mr. Allen have indicated, the omnibus bill was signed, House Bill 105 was signed into law by Governor Quinn on July 1, has an immediate effective date. So all those provisions will begin to kick in for the November election. I hope to have, before the next board meeting, a revised 2014 election calendar and a revised 2015 election calendar to the extent that it impacts
Yes.
2015. Because most of the provisions, with regard to early voting, grace period, apply only for November. But we'll have something for the board to consider at the next board meeting. And there was also, that bill did include a question on the ballot with regard to minimum wage. There was also another bill, advisory referendum statewide, that would require that state board certifying question to voters with regard to health care insurance and provision of birth control coverage. So there are at least 2 of the 3 statewide referenda have been signed and will appear on the ballot. So that's all we have right now with regard to legislation.
Great, thank you. All righty, under new business, we have 2 contracts. The first one is a contract with Joan Pinnell for managing our polling place administrator program. And Ms. Pinnell was recommended unanimously by staff and has experience with us with us in previous,
No, she has not.
has not.
But she's,
But she's been a PPA.
But she's been a
She has
PPA.
been a PPA.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's been a PPA, right.
Yes.
Okay. So there's a professional service agreement between the Chicago Board of Elections and Joan Cannell for a period of 1 year, June 30th, 2014 to May 29th, 2015, at an amount of $25 per hour for an amount not to exceed $55,000.
yes.
Okay?
Okay. Motion to approve?
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All's in favor?
Aye.
That'll be the order. And we have a contract with Mr. Scanlon. We are appreciative, Mr. Scanlon, that you would agree to serve for another year. And I mean that with all sincerity. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You are the best election lawyer, hands down, in the state of Illinois, and one of the top election lawyers in the United States. And I know that we would be rudderless without you here guiding us. So we have, I think under the new, I read something, Jim, about the new advisory opinion from the Attorney General regarding Open Meetings Act. That for contracts, you have to give the salient terms
Correct.
now, so it is a contract for 1 year, and it is at $250 an hour. And as a practicing attorney, I can tell you that's well below market for your experience, skills, and abilities. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Do we just have to mention the paralegal, if there is a paralegal?
If there is a
term?
paralegal rate, that'll be at $90 an hour, and if there is an associate attorney working in support, it'll be at $210 an hour.
Okay.
Up to $210.
Up to $210.
Depending upon experience and qualifications, and subject to approval by the board.
Motion to approve?
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That'll be the order.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say I appreciate the remarks, and it's a privilege to be able to serve the board, and I look forward to another interesting year.
Yes, it will be,
Yes,
Jim.
thank you, Jim.
Thank you. All righty. Legal report. Mr. Scanlon, anything else?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think both Kelly and Jim referred to the litigation with regard to the proposed constitutional amendments regarding term limits and the creation of a redistricting commission. And as you probably know, the Circuit Court of Cook County entered a judgment finding that those two petitions and those two questions seeking to amend the Constitution are in fact unconstitutional. And there are reports that the proponents of the constitutional amendment with regard to the redistricting commission have pretty much folded their tent. They are not going to pursue any further appeal. However, the proponents of the term limits question are moving forward. They have filed a notice of appeal. They've also filed a notice or a motion for leave to take a direct appeal to the Illinois Supreme Court. So that has already been instituted, and I suspect it's likely the Supreme Court will grant the motion and ultimately hear the case. But in the meantime, those two questions have been determined to be unconstitutional. So that's where we are with regard to that litigation.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Scanlon?
No.
All righty. We will move to the financial report. We have voucher listing for the City of Chicago, number 1406, dated July 8th, 2014, in the amount of $306,932.58.
Motion to approve?
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
That'll be the order. And we have, in addition, we have a voucher listings for the County of Cook, totaling $462,210.25. $462,210.25. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those are approved. We'll now move to the public comment section. We have our usual distinguished guest, but a particular distinguished guest, Mr. Salas. Welcome. You don't have to talk. It's not, you're not forced to talk, but we're happy to have you.
Well, whenever there's an opportunity to talk. But first I want to thank you, Chairman Neal, for being on our TV show, Election 2014, which our show is educational. You know, I'm always trying to educate our community regarding elections and the importance of getting out to vote. So that's something that I'm always trying to do, is encourage people to vote. That's what we got to do. Because in our community, in the 22nd Ward, unfortunately, a lot of people don't vote. There's 14,000 people, out of our 17,000 registered voters in the ward. And I'm always trying to encourage people to vote. I tell them for the future of their children, I said, but for people, the niños, to vote.
Yeah.
So yesterday, not yesterday, Sunday, Sunday, we did voter registration in front of St. Agnes Church, 27, and in Central Park in Little Village, we were able to register 21 new voters.
Excellent.
So we're always working to do that, and it's always something that, it's a challenge. I always look at these things as a challenge to
Yes.
get people to vote. We have to continue to do that. I do it on a voluntary basis,
I know
but I've
you
been
do.
doing it for years. But thank you for allowing me to speak.
Well, thank you for your
Thank
public
you.
service. We greatly appreciate it here, as well as the City of Chicago, and it was my pleasure to be your guest on your show. Anything else for us today, Terry?
Well, I've just been thinking about how much easier it is to vote now than it was just a few years ago.
Yes, it is.
And so there's really no excuse for anybody.
So we keep making it easier, and we unfortunately don't see the other side of the process, and that is the actual coming out to vote. So we'll have to work on that part too. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Executive Director, everyone else this morning. 3 quick items.
You gotta just give us your name again, and
Darnell O'Mac on the 6th Ward Republican Committeeman.
Yes.
And I wanted to mention 3 quick items. I'm aware that some of the organizations around the city that sponsor deputy registrar classes are going through Cook County to get their people registered, deputized. And I wanted to make sure, is there an interface between you guys and Cook County to get these processes as quick as possible? Or
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then my second thing was absentee ballots. This last election, across several wards on the south side, and I know this is not you guys, but ballots were returned on numerous occasions. One time at the post office, a second time at the post office, and a third time in some instances. And I'm aware of it because some of them were my relatives. Came and said, hey, here's the ballot, you take it downtown personally, it's the 3rd time. So that's another concern. And then my last concern.
Could I?
Yeah, let's
could I answer
we're
that?
not, yeah,
We
go ahead.
did meet with the Postal Service, and there was a problem. We have it corrected. It will not happen again. So I just want to let you
And
know.
the last concern was, I have 4 nursing homes in my ward, and they do the early voting. My judges who were placed there came to me afterwards and said several people in the nursing home were totally unable to sign or anything else to know their name. But some even came to me, and not me, but the judge, and said, hey, I asked for a Republican ballot application, but I got this. And they were told that, well, we only ordered Democratic ballots for everyone here. And I'm a little bit concerned because I know we don't have access to it, to nursing homes like the alderman does. Basically Democratic, well, my ward is a Democratic alderman. So he has access there, and I spoke with the administrator, and, you know, I laid my concerns to her, but again, that's a big concern as far as staff from the board going out to make sure that the ballots out there, or the nursing home get these ballots in and get them back to you guys. And I mean, even if it was only 2 or 3 ballots that we could have got as Republican hits, it's still a concern because, again, if they're doing this across the city, it's a greater concern.
A, it's a major concern if that happened. We should know right away. B, that, you know, once we get the application, we don't mark them. The voter's supposed to be marking those applications. So it's something that we will look into. In fact, I'm going to see if we can,
And
what I can pull.
were there any Republican judges in those?
They were both Republican and Democratic judges. And someone actually, my judge told me that someone from the board was out there and said, well, we only have Democratic ballots here.
So, and if I can just ask, why didn't that person or you contact us immediately at that time?
They relayed it to me, and I started let them call. You know, I said, I'll get to the board once they have a meeting down the road and just let them know my concerns. So,
Well, only because if we know right away, we could contact the people and find out exactly what was going on.
And I can send an investigator out there and take statements right away and get that done. So, I mean, there's nothing for us to run ballots out there if the voter, but we need to see the application, see how the voter marked the application. So
So
once we know
before
that.
the end, give us the location. Since we won't, give us the location so that we can keep an eye on it for next time.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you. Ms. Maroney, anything for us today?
Good morning, how are you today?
Good morning.
Yes, I do. I'm wearing my Defend the Vote hat at this very moment.
Okay.
And had a couple of issues. One, I wanted to confirm that since the voting laws are going to be changing in November, just for the November elections, House Bill 105, we had an agreement earlier that all of the employees in the early voting locations, or you guys had made the policy change, would be registered voters. And I wanted to confirm that that agreement is still being enforced, and also to state that we will be looking to want to have to make sure that there are Republican and Democrat election judges overseeing every single signature for early voting. Cook County has some great moves that they're doing. I don't know what you guys are going to do, but I'll be looking into it to find out, to make sure that people who are coming from anywhere in Cook County and voting are in fact voting, you know, lawfully. So I didn't know if we still had that policy going on.
Yes, we do.
We do, okay, that's great news. And is that also for grace period voting? So everybody
Yes, it
working
is.
at those desks as well are registered voters? Okay, that's great news. Glad to hear that. The second issue that I was concerned about was, yeah, we had some concerns about, I've been getting a number of reports of voters calling in and saying, and it's similar to what you have said, they're calling me and saying, well, I went to vote, but they told me that somebody already voted. And I'm getting this too late for me to do anything about it for the ongoing election, obviously.
Well, did you get their names?
Well, and that's one of the things that I decided one way that I could track it is to do a FOIA for the Ask Ed reports to see what you guys get. Because, you know, an incidental report here and there, to me, it's too hard to make anything substantive on that.
Well, but go back to, did you get the names of these people who say
I have
that
a
they?
couple of them, and I don't have all, you know,
Can you
I don't
provide
really, I
me?
haven't, as a process, tracked them down, but I'm planning to do that for this election, especially since the security of the vote has been compromised. So I'm wondering if you guys have a procedure that when you get those calls in, what do you do and how do you follow up in any way, shape, or form? I'm sure you do, I just don't know your procedures.
Is this early voting or election day?
I'm getting these reports from election day. They say, because if they did it early voting, they would get obviously a provisional ballot. But on election day, I'm hearing people say, I went to vote, and they said, oh, I'd already voted. And I, you know, and you must get calls like that because they have to call you guys first.
No, I don't think
We
we
don't
get.
really get calls like that.
Well,
Especially
If
from
it's a
Occasionally-
junior, senior, like if it's
Yeah.
the same name,
I
junior,
follow
senior,
that
same
too,
address,
to
then
see
we
if it's
do.
not. Like a lady said, you know, somebody voted for her, and
We
then.
would need exacts then. We would need specific names of voters where this happened in order to track it.
Well, at least you say you have a couple of names,
Yeah, give us
right?
what you have.
So
We do.
if you could provide that to,
You can
to us?
Well, you know, I think that from my perspective, rather than taking sources that have confided in me confidentially after the election, obviously they didn't do anything at the election time. And I only have so much influence, and I know that you guys are genuinely concerned. I was just wondering if there's a policy here so that when that does happen, I can follow up and say, well, this is what the board is doing, so this is how you should be behaving.
Yeah, we do have a policy here, but we can't do anything if they don't report it. So, I
Right,
mean,
right. So then you track those reports?
absolutely.
Right,
Absolutely,
and like
yeah.
I said, if you could provide us with at least a couple of names, but, you know, you're putting us in the situation where you're telling us that people have said, but now you're refusing to provide us with at least the couple of names you have, and so how can we investigate and find out?
Well,
It's a-
if it were me, I would have a policy such that it was already happening, and then as a member of the public, I can FOIA that data. Rather than me taking an incidental person, I'd rather look at the holistic scheme of it. So if I'm sure you track it in Ask Ed. 'cause
We
you
don't,
Absolutely.
but
track all your files.
we don't, we haven't had that.
Right, if we have it where it's a junior, senior, same address, then we fix that on the spot.
That's easy to fix.
But I'll tell you, if it's a matter of where this is really somebody else voting and committing fraud, it immediately is written up. I mean, we'd give it to Mr. Scanlon, you know, we would, we'd follow those, that line of investigation. But I'll tell you, it's not something that really happens. I mean, we would
I
all
remember
know about
one
it.
over the
Yeah.
last few elections, and
Yeah.
we gather the evidence, and then, you know, we find it suspicious, we refer it to law enforcement.
Great,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and
Well, I'll
I-
go ahead and follow up on that
Yeah.
and look at that.
Mhm.
I'm glad that I knew you had processes, and at least I can tell the voters what the processes are.
Yes.
Okay.
And they
now-
don't, the voter, once they make a complaint with us, they don't have to FOIA it. We gather the information, communicate with them,
Right.
and
Well,
report on
naturally you would.
our investigation, yeah.
Yeah, naturally you
Well,
would
if
go
it
there.
happens to a voter, they can call Voter Central.
Right.
That's true.
That day.
Right, and it doesn't just end with Ask Ed.
No.
If it's a mistake, it could probably be corrected, and they could be allowed to vote if they.
And it is. If we do find mistakes, we can correct them right then and there, and we do.
This isn't something that happens.
Great. Okay, and then on the Election Judge Association side, we have a whole bunch of applications that I'm gonna be turning in after the meeting today.
Excellent, excellent.
Great.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Nothing else? Yes?
Something brief, I just want to mention that Attorney Scanlon, he does return phone calls.
Nah.
He does
Yes, he
return
does.
phone calls. I'm August, these things out there.
Nice to
Thank
meet
so
you.
much.
We have spoken
He
on
does
the
return
phone.
phone calls.
Thank you. All righty. We will, if there's nothing else to come before the board, I'll take a motion to adjourn till our next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be July 22nd.
Motion to adjourn?
Moved and I'll second. Moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That'll be the order. And we will now, do we have agendas here for that?
I'm sorry?
Do we have an agenda for?